If you did not have plexiglass that I offered you on the last time that we saw, there's other alternatives that you can use. Please just, text me or email me and we'll figure it out, something out. We can do something on like a wax coated paper, tape it down, do painting on that. We can do, paintings on anything that, you can even use regular glass. You don't have to use plexiglass. So if you had like a frame that, you weren't using that had glass in it from like the dollar store or something like that, just let me know if you don't have it. Okay. And then also the inks, the paints I'm going to be using are Reeves. If you didn't get the opportunity to buy Reeves, you can buy one sleeve or you can buy double. You have AC Moore and Michaels. I think one of them went out of business or something. You can also go to Dick Blick online. You have to do 5 of these. So if you have oil paints, you can also use oil paints. Now the oil paints are probably better at this point in the game because you're at home and we don't have a printing press. I've never actually done this with watercolor without the printing press. I have no idea how this is going to come out. I don't think it's going to come out nearly as nice as it normally would, but we will see. And you can also do the oil base. Now the initial assignment was 4 watercolor monotypes, all different images, and then 1 black and white one. Most of you probably did not take home oil-based ink, but if you have oil-based paint and want to try it, you can do that, but it has to be very thin, keep in mind. I will give you both demos, but first we're going to do the demo with the watercolor. You can also use gouache if you have gouache. That will work also. Okay, so this is going to my quarantine special setup here at home. This is for the mono prints I'm setting up for. And I still have to, well, let me show you. I have a pan, like use a Tupperware or whatever to put your paper in. Because remember, you have to soak your paper. You stick one in at a time. And you make sure it's sunk before you stick the next one in. So this way, if you put them all in at the same time, it forms air pockets. They all don't get completely wet then. That one's kind of sticking out there. All right, and then over here is my template. If you have a newsprint, I use the back of a cardboard, so I didn't have newsprint. I put my paper down. I traced, you see here, I traced where the paper was going to go, here and here on the sides also. Removed it. Then I made sure my plates were centered within those lines, like so. All right, I'm also going to get Bounty paper towels to blot my paper off. The Bounty you could dry and then reuse, so that's good. All right, so now with the plexiglass, I'm going to have to lightly sand the top of the plexiglass in order for my watercolors to adhere. I lost my sandpaper in the 10 seconds I've been sitting here, okay? So my sandpaper is right here. Just regular sandpaper. You're going to do a circular motion, and you're going to sand it. Now, normally you would also bevel the edges with a file, but you may not have it. You don't have to have a file, but usually bevel the edges. Okay, so I have my setup here, and I have my plexiglass. Now, with the watercolors, your stuff has to be 100% dry. So you have to be 100% dry when you go to print your stuff. If it's not 100% dry when you go to print it, the watercolor's onto the plate, then what's going to happen is it's going to bleed all over the place, and you don't want that. So, all right. So anyway, what you're going to want to do is, have an image, and you put your image underneath here. They say this is my drawing. I'm not going to have a drawing. Pretend that was my drawing. I'm going to put it underneath, and I could tape it down to the outside of the backside of the glass, and I could sit there and I could paint. Now remember, whatever I'm painting has got to be backwards, just like with the carvings that we did earlier. If it's backwards, it will print the opposite way. And whatever this is, it's going to print the opposite. So make sure if it's a word or something that has to be facing a certain direction, you have it facing the direction it needs to be. All right, so now this, start painting on top of the plexiglass. I'm not going to have an image. Or your other option is, because if you have denatured alcohol at home, Sharpie marker will take it off. So you can actually take your plexiglass, put it down on top of your image. You could draw whatever it is you need to draw, all right? We're just drawing the eyes and the penguin. We're going to trace it all, right? And then I have the image on this side. And all I did is small, a tiny bit of it here. And you have what you have here. Okay, you can kind of see that, I would think. Anyway, you see it on my glass. I paint on the opposite side, right, of where I just drew. Okay, draw on the back, paint on the front. And when you're done, that alcohol will take it right off. I'm going to go get an alcohol pad just to show you. I don't have denatured alcohol with me. Any of these times I probably shouldn't be using this on this, but hey, gotta do our work, right? So it was denatured alcohol. Now this is a Sharpie marker, okay? And this is the back side of it. So you see it's much more richer on the back. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take it right off using an alcohol wipe. Now denatured alcohol will take it right off. What happens is sometimes it does stain, depending on how old the plate is. It could even take that W off that's already, that's been there. So let me put this down so I can do this better job here. Now, yeah, you can see it's coming off. You can see it in the wipe, it's coming off. If you want your stuff to stick really good to your plates anyway, you should probably clean them really good. Now my plates are all scuffed up, so there's going to be more staining occurring or areas in which I just cannot get in to remove all the Sharpie marker and things. So let's see if I can clean off both sides. Now that's only if you want to draw on it. You do not have to draw on it. You can paint directly onto the plate. No, it's almost gone entirely. You can still see a little bit left over. Maybe. I don't know if you can see it. I can see where I'm standing. There's a little bit left over, but I am only using an alcohol pad just because I do not have denatured alcohol with me. Have it elsewhere, fortunately. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to scuff up your plate with sandpaper. It could be any grit sandpaper, but you know the medium to fine is probably better. And you're going to go into circular motion. You see it's getting scuffed up a little bit. It's really hard for the watercolor to stick to it. In the event that you're actually doing just all oils, then you don't have to worry about doing this. I should be just doing some kitchen table and mess with my kitchen table. All right, so anyway, I'm going to get rid of this guy for now. Actually, I'm going to do one more plate. Another plate. All right, so I'm going to do this plate also. And you see that this plate, I actually beveled the edges. Okay, so which means they're at an angle. That's what's going on. So if they weren't, you'd want to take a file, which you may not have at home. And again, because you're not using a printing press, you don't really have to do this part. But I put at the edge of the table here. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. So I'm going to move you in a little bit. Kind of angle you downward. That's just not working out well. Good. It's gonna fall. All right, like that maybe. All right, so you put your hand down on top like this, and you see my file's at an angle the entire time. Slight angle. And you do all four sides. It would take a lot longer than this, but mine's already done. You'll see I'm holding it like this. It's being beveled at an angle. And then what you do is you'd go around and you'd bevel the corners off. And when you take the corners off, you round them. All right, so you'd round the corners. And you just keep going over and over again at an angle. You see that this one's got a little bit of a bevel to the edge. Kind of see it maybe. It's not like the other plates here. Let me find one that's not as good. See this one, there's no real bevel to it. And this one, it's really hard to show on camera actually. It's got a little bit of a bevel to it. I don't know if you can see the difference on the camera. Yeah, I guess you can. You know, this one's just straight. And this one's got a little bevel to it. All right, anyway. So then you are ready to paint. So what I do when I'm painting is I have either another piece of plexiglass that I lay all my paint out onto that I'm going to be using, or I use a wax coated paper plate like this. Okay, that's what I typically do. So this, or you can use something else like a piece of plexiglass. When you're done, you can use saran wrap and you can cover it and save those colors for later. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to map out my idea in my head, and then I'm going to start painting. And you paint really thin, okay? That's what you have to do, thin. All right, let me try to put this back up. Okay, so now I'm back. All right, so what you do now is you need to decide what your image is. You usually have something sketched out or an idea already, you know, that you had in your head. For me, I don't have an idea. Well, I have an idea. I don't want to say nothing. But I am going to go ahead and I'm going to start painting. Now, you have to paint thin. So I have to mix my colors first. So I'm going to put out a little bit of red. Now, hopefully I have white somewhere. The cool thing about Reeves is it's very cheap, and the binding agent in it lets it pull right off the plate. Now, not all watercolors are the same. So tube watercolors are going to be the best for this process. With the unfortunate part about this is that some watercolors, like there's one that's with a P, is not good for this process. I can't remember the name of it. It's not good for this process at all, but it's good for other types of watercolor painting. Winsor & Newton's great for this. Now, there are certain colors, like white, for instance, the binding agent somehow makes it more stickier in certain watercolors, and so it reacts more like an acrylic paint than does a watercolor in this process. So what happens is you start painting, and like if you're doing acrylic paints, it won't come back off the plexiglass. If it's going to come off, it's going to come off looking like a fruit roll-up piece of plastic, and that's not what you would want. You want we want it to bleed into the wet paper. So that's why we wet the paper. So it's going to bleed nicely into the wet paper. It will not bleed. It's going to transfer to the wet paper and blend. Bleeding's bad. You don't want it to bleed because, yeah, that's just going to ruin your whole image unless that's the effect that you're going for, of course. So I'm going to put out the colors that I'm going to use. I'm going to continue doing that. Okay, this one's dried up. That's what happens. I keep so many. What happens is with these colors is they're cheap, and you end up with a whole bucket full. Like, look at this. This is ridiculous, guys. Look, see this? These are all the colors that are left over because I always go through black and white, and it's cheaper to go out and buy an entire new kit than it is to go and buy individual black and whites. So then I end up looking like a lunatic that I own like 5 million different colors over here, you know. It's pretty rough. Okay, so anyway, some black. I don't know if I'm gonna have white. White's gonna be a tough one. You could, if you don't have watercolors, you could use the other paints I have here, the inks I should say. These are not paints, these are inks. You could technically use those. Those should work. However, we just don't have a variety of those, and that's the difference. I have no white there. Shoot. Let me look for white. Oh, I have a little bit of white here. Let's hope it's not all hardened. All right, so I got that, and I need some kind of greens and yellows. So let me grab that first, and then we will continue. Actually, I got a lot of black. Uh-oh. All right. So let me grab. Now I use a white plate because surrounding your colors by white, you kind of really see the purity of the color. All right, so I'm gonna use this guy as my model. He's gonna sit up there for a minute. Be my model. Yeah, so I want him backwards, I think. I put him backwards. Yeah. So I'm gonna restart my sketch here. Let me start on this side. Let me start in the sketch. Is it a really ratty old scrap paper? Oh no, I got my hand in the paint. It's not what I want. So the cool thing about watercolors, you technically don't have to wear gloves. I was doing oil base, you should be wearing gloves. The cleanup of oil base, if you don't have turpentine at home, you can use vegetable oil and Windex, and that is all you will need. Now I'm going to do 2 of these. Alright, so that's my sketch. I don't know if you can see that, but that's my sketch. And then I'm going to put this on top. So I do have a rough sketch idea to go with. And I'm going to go ahead and paint. Got my regular brushes up here. All sorts of different brushes. Let's see if I can move you in a little bit here. I should move you back. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and paint. I'm going to wet the paint, make it really thin. You can have thin and thick. You don't want to go too thick. If you go too thick, I'll try to show you up at the camera as I'm painting here. This is my palette. If you go too thick, you're going to have a whole nother set of problems there. So I'm going to start with like you can't layer it like you are layering regular acrylic painting. It's not going to work out for you. And you can layer to some degree. It's not going to react the way you're going to expect it to. And I would suggest you maybe trying to trial one, see how it comes out before you paint something very, very detailed. Now you could go super detailed with this method, but I'd say for the very first one out of your 5, do not go too detailed. Learn from the first one. Decide to put thin and thick areas. See what that does for you. It does, your brush strokes will show. So paint in a direction that you're okay with. You know, don't be sloppy all over. Actually be very intentional with your brush marks. You can use a variety of brushes. I'm just using one for now. Sometimes I do that during demos. I just don't jump around as much as I should. Getting some nice shadowed areas in there. I mean, I'm not going too detailed just because also I've never had a print without my press. I was tempted to take this outside and put it underneath my car. And I still might do that. But I only have a one-time shot. That's why it's a mono. Mono means one-time deal here. One time to figure this out for this specific image. When you go to label these, they're going to be 1/1. That's the fraction on it. So it's going to be 1/1, and then that's it, because that means it's a one of a kind, and it's the artist's promise. There's only one of them in existence. And I have to wait for this to dry a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting another color in a second. Need a little bit more. I lost my white. I lose everything. Lose everything all the time. I don't know why. Okay, I lost it. It is now gone. Oh, there it is. All right. It's not that gone. I'll show you what I have so far in a second. I'd rather do a little bit at a time, put out a little bit at a time only. That's what I have so far only. You see right through it, and that's okay. I mean, some of this is going to print perfectly fine. What's going to happen is it's going to bleed into the paper a little bit, okay? And dipping in water to thin it out in some spots, mixing it. And if I don't like anything at any point in time, I take a piece of paper towel, stick it in my water, and erase it. So it's kind of cool because you can actually just, seriously just take it right off. All right, I'm also going to put like a blue in the background or something like that. And I'm definitely washing this off. I should have a paper towel here, but left it on the other side of the room. Don't tell nobody. Just saying. Alright, so I'm gonna go then paint just white in a second. Pure white. I'm going to put a little bit left of that out. And now, of course, it's going to take on whatever tints in my water, my dirty water. So you might want to use a clean cup for that, but I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, I kind of like my colors dirty. Well, not all the time, but you know, a lot of times it, you know, like right now if I'm painting on the line work that I just made with the black, what's going to happen is you're going to get a little bit of muddiness into the white. It's not even muddy, it's nice looking actually. It's not muddy, it's a good muddy, if that's such a thing. And this one area right here kind of messed it up a little bit, but I might have to go back and we'll see. We have to wait for it all to dry, and this is really watery in this section now. Totally my fault. I mean, whose else's fault would it be? I'm the only one here painting it. But anyway, so about that. It's quarantine stuff, right? Making you crazy. Well, maybe not you. I should talk about my anyway. So I'm just going to put a little bit more details in. Just give me a couple seconds here. I'm gonna fast forward through this part of the video. Got like a toucan beat going on there, and I'm painting it from a stuffed animal. People, come on, you gotta give me a break here. He's not being painted from a realistic flamingo. I'm just kind of using him as a model. Let me get some blue. This is what I got so far. Okay, blue. I have to wait for bits of that to dry because what is happening is I don't like certain areas, but they're too wet to do anything about right now. I have a good selection of brushes here. I guess we're just going to go with that one. I keep in mind my perspective here. I can say, hey, atmosphere perspective, and you know, maybe I want things to get duller as they go back into space, an illusion, or maybe I want an abstract background. And, for the first one, I wouldn't go over you want detail, but you don't want to go too crazy because you don't want to not know if this is not going to work after all the work you did, you know. I'm doing a dabbing technique here, kind of blending it to the edges, keeping it thin at the bottom there. Blending it in, fading it, whatever. Not like that. If I don't like an area, remember, I just had to take a piece of paper towel and get rid of it. That's what I'm gonna do. I'll be right back. Don't like it. Alright, so I usually dip it in the water. I usually have more than one water, but just erase certain areas here that I did not like. It's hard for me to tilt it at this point because it's really wet. It's gonna ruin it if I do. And sometimes I hold it up to the light to see if I'm applying enough paint. I think I am here. Alright, so let me get some more pinkish white here. Alright, so that's what I got so far. I'm gonna go with him just like this. Yours are gonna be more detailed. Your first one, do not make it more detailed than this. You're gonna see that you see right through parts of this. It's very thin in certain areas, and you're going to see how a backlit looks different when it's pressed onto paper. This has to be 100% dry before I go to print it though. Alright, so now I'm going to paint another one while that one's drying. So we need to get rid of our buddy. Alright, let me find some other colors here. Yeah, Payne's gray. So we actually have gray. Let's see, gray. Alright. And it's ancient, so I can't open it. Oh, come on. Yeah, I opened it. And gray is almost as dark as black, not quite black, but at least, you know, work with that. Alright, so this one I'm going to draw my drawing right on top of my old one. So I mean, it's not like I need to, I just need to make sure he fits. I want to make sure my guy fits. So that's all I'm doing. Alright, so I get clean water if you want. I would suggest clean water, but or another, yeah, so let me get clean water. I'll be right back. Okay, got some clean water too this time because I'm doing white and well, that's just, I don't know, it's not gonna be so good if I end up you know, you don't want to make the white dirty, you know. So anyhow, let's just go with this. He's a cartoon too, so we're gonna do an outline. The thing is, I don't have a rolling pin. Thought I had one here, but I have it at the other house. So we're just gonna do it with the other brayer. You do rolling pin. You can also do spoons. Going very dark. Here, look how dark and messy that is right now. Okay. But I'm painting on small plates. You guys are supposed to do like 8x10s. But for the demo, I figured this is faster and easier for you to sit through it, you know? Alright, so while it dries for a minute, I'm going to paint the background. Again, I'm going to go with a blue. Winter. This one's hardened. I think I'm going to keep picking up the same one. I saved the hard ones because you could cut them open with a razor blade and you could re-wet them and you can use them for watercolor paintings. For this technique, that's a little rough to use them for. So you could use them for other things, so that's why I don't throw them out because they're totally usable. They just need to be re-wet. But they'll never be like this. You know, they'll never be as smooth as this again. At least I don't know if they don't, you know, I've never had that happen. So I'm going to go with a bigger brush. Where's my bigger one? Even though I'm going in a different direction right now, I'm going to smooth that out and fix it to go into the same direction. So it looks completely more intentional. I'm blocking in the bigger areas first. Alright, like so. Alright, blocking in the big areas first. I'm going to go back in with a smaller brush and do the outline areas. It's just faster. With oil paint, you want to keep it thin because you don't want the colors to all bleed together. I'm using watercolors for this one. There's some of you have taken the other class where you actually have oil paints at home. Just make sure you keep it, you know, somewhat thin. Too thick is going to end up bleeding on you. And while this one's drying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go see how my flamingo is doing. You work on that one a little bit more. I do have to fix this one up a little bit, and so I'm going back and doing a little bit of work on it right now. I take a small bit of paper towel to, you know, remove some paint in some areas that I did not want it in. Alright, and then I just have to repaint that area a little bit, that's all. So I would like to keep showing you, but it's really hard to keep flipping it without it running all over the place. Again, I don't know how well this is going to print to begin with because of the fact that never tried hand printing it before, ever. Not with watercolors. Let's hope for the best. That's what we're going to be doing. I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. Got so far. It's very liquidy, so I can't hold it up for too long. That's it. And I'm going to bring it back over here so you can see it in a second on top of white, so you can imagine what it looked like on paper. This guy is almost dry enough to print, so I'm going to set him up to print. Alright, so I'm going to take you down. So that's about it. And you can always go back over and create into a mixed media piece if you really don't like certain things about it. This one, I don't mind. It's not too bad. Alright, so I think I'm going to call it quits on this one. Then we're good. Oh, and I was holding the camera side. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's supposed to be like this. Okay. Alright, so this is what I got for the penguin. You can see what he's going to look like on top of white. To some degree, it never looks as detailed. So I always paint more detailed, but it never looks as detailed. And that's my flamingo. Alright, what you have to do is you have to get the paper out of the water. I clean my hands. And I'm going to let the water, I'm going to let it drip. And then streaming is no good. You want to take it out once it's starting to drip like this, real light dripping. If it's still streaming, just keep it over the pan. Alright, and what you're going to do is you're going to put it on blotters. Blotters can cost $5 for like a giant one. Just one sheet of it even. So I'm using Bounty paper towels. This is all I got at home, you know. And make sure I blot it off. You don't want your paper to be dry. You do want it to be damp. It actually has to be damp. Or it won't take the watercolor off the plate. I think that we're going to have to press relatively hard. I don't know. Let's see, because I usually use a printing press for this. Like I said before, printing press, right? So I'm going to save these bounties. So I'm going to keep them in good condition and move them over someplace else in my house. All right. So I'm going to grab my template that I made earlier. This is my template. Okay. And I'm going to place my flamingos first, we said, right? Because he's dry. Remember the flamingo, dry. I'm going to place it down. Now wherever I'm going to then place my paper down on top, I'm going to make sure my paper is in the exact spots I need it in, and I cannot move it once I do. So I'm going to kind of hold it up and then not let it touch I'm not letting it touch my plate until after I'm ready. All right, now I need another piece of paper on top to protect it. So I'm going to grab another sheet of paper to do so. And now normally you do like a newsprint or something like that would be fine. I'm going to lay it down. Now we have to put a fair amount of pressure on this for transfer. All I have is this. You can use a rolling pin or something like that. I'm going to push really hard. So that's why if it was a buildup of paint and you're pushing really hard, you're squishing it and it's going to squish all over the place. So if this doesn't work with the watercolor, I'm going to say just do oil-based, or I'm going to take it outside and put it underneath my car tire and see what happens. This is what I'm going to do, although it might break the plate. I don't know. So I'm trying to put pressure all over it. And I'm going to peek. In order to peek, you're going to put your hand down on top of one end of the paper and just peek around the other side. That's what you're going to do. This is not my paper. This is like just spare. So I'm gonna peek. I'm gonna pull up the paper just a little bit see if it printed. If it printed good, then I pull it off. If it didn't print that great, it's okay. We'll go with it is okay. I'm going to have to touch it up. It's not bad. I could probably get a ghost print off of the second one. And it's not terrible. I can fix this up real quick because it is watercolor and it's still wet. I can fix the eye up. And now this is what this one now looks like. Okay, so I'm going to show you up close. Turn this off. Do a lot of video cuts. So you can see them both side by side, and you can see that I could actually still probably get a ghost print off of this one, which means a ghost print is a second print. I should press a little bit harder and it would have worked out well. You're seeing a lot more texture of the paper than you normally would because I'm not using a press. But you can see, remember how I was dab, 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 dab. You see all those little dab marks, you see my strokes. So you have to be very careful what you're doing. I kept all my brushes and paints out. And I'm going to extend, some of this. So it doesn't look so bad there. I could also, wash that off. Kind of get some of that pink back in here if I wanted to. So there's little fixes that you can do. Overall, it's not too bad. It's better than I expected it to go. At least that's the case, right? But it's not quite the same as the printing press, that is for sure. I want more solid down there. I can't decide if that's what I want. I think I'm going to leave that. When you go to sign it, you have to wait for this to dry 100%. You're going to put 1/1, your title, signature, and date. Okay. Some people like the plexiglass so much they want to keep it. Again, if you don't have plexiglass, you could do this different ways. We can go about this. There definitely is. And then over here, you can see this is still way too liquidy to print. So I'm going to have to wait probably like 20 minutes for that to dry. We put down the paper towels to blot off the paper. I'm going to use I like the bigger paper better, actually. I'm going to use this one. Alright, so we're going to do the oil-based demo a different day. So we let it drip. Put it down on the paper towels. Throw another paper towel down on top. Blot it off. We do want it a little damp. Okay. We don't want it shiny or dripping. Remove the paper towels elsewhere. Get my template that I have from before. Put my plate. Line it up. It's nice and dry now. I'm gonna then put my paper down on top, like so. Okay, I'm gonna put my paper down on top. I'm gonna protect the paper down on top, and I'm going to press it, holding on tight to my plate so my plate does not move around. Make sure I get all the edges, leaning into the edges. I'm pressing pretty hard because normally I have a printing press doing this job, and the printing press is so strong, crush your bones in your hands. So you can press really hard if you want. All right, and I'm going to peek. So what I do to peek is I put my hand down on the paper like this, and I open it up a little bit, and if it looks good, I pull it off. If it does not look good, I put it back down. I think my paper might have been a little bit too dry, but I remember I did say that because of I don't have the same pressure I normally would on a printing press, so yeah, I don't really like this one, so I'm gonna put it back down. I mean, it's got a cool effect. I could leave it, but I think I'd get more ink off of it, so I'm gonna dampen this. I'm gonna get a paper towel with water. Normally I'd have a spray bottle of water. I just don't have one of those on hand right now, so I'm gonna actually wet my paper. This is a dangerous game because I cause bleeding doing this, okay? But I know it's a dangerous game and I'm willing to make that sacrifice, right? So I'm gonna put this down to soak up the mass amount of quantity of water I just put down. And I'm using the same paper towels over and over again. I'm just going to slightly lift this off. All right, now I'm going to put my paper back down on top. Let's hope this works out better. I'm going to get my brayer or spoon. So my paper wants to be, for this one, I'd have to be a little bit wetter than I was. You also don't want it dripping, so if it's dripping or puddling in any area, it's going to cause your image to bleed. Now, what I just did is I put big giant puddles in the back of my paper, which could have been a dumb idea. We'll see. I think it will save it, because I think it will help moisten the paper enough to pull the ink off. Or I should say the watercolor off. Let's see what we got. See, you're going to see some bleeding on this end right here. Bled right through the paper because of how damp I made it. So this might have been a mistake. I might have ruined it, but I didn't. It's a little bit better. I do like it. It's not exactly the way I hoped it to come out, but it's not that bad either, right? So I think it's good enough. I'm going to show you. Maybe I should darken the shot. I kind of like the way it is, though. I don't know. We'll see. All right.